Welcome to On Deck with the Ketts, the official show of the Kettleers, taking you through everything happening around Lowell Park and all throughout the village. Now here's your Kettouet media team for this episode of On Deck with the Ketts.
Welcome back to another episode of On Deck with the Ketts, Season 3, I believe it is, of our off-season podcast segment. This is episode 6 for us. And myself, Joe Pratt, joined alongside Tyler Danberg and Lily Butler. We got a great guest coming up today, but before that, I'm going to introduce the rest of our team. Of course, our other broadcaster, Tyler Danberg. How you doing today?
Doing great, Joe. You said off-season podcast, off-season for not too much long. We're recording this on May 8th, 33 days until opening day against Chatham. It's coming up close.
That's right. Just around the corner. Lily Butler, of course, on with us as well, our sideline reporter. What's up, Lily?
What's up, Joe? Excited. And just like Tyler said, we're coming up really close. It's getting really real. So we're ready to get to the Cape, I'm sure.
Well, our past few episodes have been with former Kettouet players who have gone on to do great things in the MLB and the world of baseball, college baseball. But today, a little bit more of a unique angle to our podcast show. Today, we're going to have on Aaron Kanzer, who was an intern with the Ketts quite a few years ago and now holds what I think is one of the coolest jobs in all of baseball. Aaron, why don't you tell us what your position was with the Ketts and introduce yourself to our fans, please?
Yeah, it's nice to meet y'all. My name is Aaron Kanzer. I'm a native of Kettouet. I grew up down there. I was an intern all the way back in 2009, 2011. So snuck in a championship there in 2010, which was awesome. And now a few years later, in which my experience from the Cape helped, I'm the Green Monster Scoreboard Operator for the Red Sox. So I've been there now for about 7 years, and it's translated well from the Cape League. So it's great to be there.
That's an amazing way that you started in Kettouet working for a scoreboard and now elevating to a completely different kind of scoreboard. What was the transition like for you?
Yes, as you mentioned, I mean, I operated the scoreboard for about a season or two when I was an intern, and ironically, it's quite similar. I mean, the Green Monster Scoreboard, the only difference is that it's quite physical, whereas doing the scoreboard at Lowell Park is just pressing buttons. But you're basically just watching the game. You're talking with an official scorer to make sure that you're seeing or keeping track of the right things on the field. You do make mistakes sometimes too. That happens at both Lowell Park and Fenway. But yeah, it translated really well. Just even understanding etiquette at a ballpark, who the people are around the ballpark, and kind of how you fit into the show.
What is the routine normally for a Green Monster operator like yourself?
Yeah, so it's actually quite similar to being an intern. At the Cape League, we show up about 2 hours before our first pitch. There's a lot of just organization work, getting ourselves ready for the game, having a good understanding of what's going on at Fenway, but not on the field. And then about a half an hour or so, we're actually stuck in the Green Monster over the course of the game. So we walk into the field, go through this door, and then we're pretty much national anthem, first pitch, play ball, and we start scorekeeping. So yeah, pretty much a pretty standard way, I guess, that most Cape League employees and interns would be, I think, familiar with.
And you've been the scoreboard operator. So what was your favorite memory so far working at Fenway?
Definitely the World Series in 2018. That was quite surreal. Just kind of, we went from having normal games over the course of the season where it's a much more casual environment, much lower stakes, to all of a sudden, we even had a cameraman from the national TV inside of the scoreboard with us. So it became really real. Everyone was wearing suits all of a sudden, which was kind of funny. And yeah, it was like one of these things where I can't believe, people around the world are watching this right now, and we're, inches from the action. So it was quite unique and something I'll never forget.
You're inside the monster for those big games and big events, but do you find yourself trying to still take it in and If so, how do you try and do that?
Yeah, it's definitely, I mean, the idea of not getting jaded is very important. I mean, baseball can sometimes be slow and you don't want to take the fan out of you. But no, I think a lot of it, I kind of sometimes think about what would myself as a kid think about having this job, and I would be so excited. And I still feel that way. I mean, Fenway Park's a special place to be, whether or not you like baseball. I mean, it's a historical part of Boston. So I tend to remind myself how fortunate I am, how lucky that I kind of stumbled upon the job. The Cape League was quite instrumental in doing so, and I had no idea when I was an intern that there was the aspect of that this job could exist, later on in life. So I feel very lucky, and I try to remind myself this is like a dream come true in a way.
And you said it, you remind your younger self that it was like a dream come true. What does that journey look like for you? You know, growing up in Kettuit, being an intern, and then now working at Fenway. Describe that journey to us?
Yeah, it was interesting over time. I mean, I played baseball as a kid, but was very bad. So I kind of knew that my path to Fenway would not be on the field or even the odds or even on the field in the Cape League. But I knew growing up at Kentuit, I mean, the Lowell Park and the Cape League is such a important part of Kentuit and just the community. So I knew I wanted to work there growing up. And then when I came to Boston, I knew I just kept going to Sox games, kept having, a good time as a college kid and a young adult in the city. And then once the job opened up, it seemed like a great fit. I didn't really think much about it because I figured there'd be thousands of people that wanted the job. But oddly enough, when I got the call to come in for an interview, the front offices there were just so many people with associations with the Cape League. And that kind of validated, myself as someone that could be a great employee and also act professionally at that level. So yeah, it was an interesting journey, one that I didn't even know of. I didn't even think about the job at Fenway or someone did that. But it kind of just worked out.
And you do say it did work out, but how did you kind of stumble upon it to begin with?
Yeah, ironically, I was looking at jobs at the Red Sox, and ironically, another intern of the Cape League and a friend of mine, his name's Rob Dombrowski, sent me a link to the job opening. Said, "Hey, remember when you did this? Like, wouldn't this be funny if you just applied?" And ironically, at the time, it was an online job application. I still haven't really asked my boss at Fenway how many people applied or how they sifted through all of them. But it actually ended up myself and one other person that was hired. We were both from the Cape League. He worked for the Wareham Gatemen. So it just kind of, I don't know, it was this kind of fast track to working there that the Cape League kind of provided me.
Seems like there are just so many full circle moments when you see Cape League alumni, whether that's players, coaches, interns. How special is the Cape Cod Baseball League, and how tight is this circle of everybody who's just around it?
The world's a lot smaller. I think people think in the baseball setting, I guess. I mean, obviously there's so many players on all the teams that worked in the Cape League. I mean, a small example, and this actually has kind of come full circle. The head of scouting now, professional scouting for the Red Sox, used to be a scout. Actually, he used to be a Cape Leaguer, but then he was a professional scout down in the Cape League when I was an intern. And it just so happened one day I was up at Fenway and we were kind of talking. We have like a communal dining hall, and he said, "Yeah, I remember you." And I remember Lowell Park. I remember, how good the hot dogs were there, and all the scouts would want to go. And just to see kind of how I progressed from an intern to working at Fenway, and from him just being a player to a scout and now the head of professional scouting. There's just so many different examples. That's just one small one, but I've just now it's become usual. At first I was surprised, and now I realized, hey, the Cape League's a special place.
So Aaron, this is Tyler and I's first year going into the Cape, and I'm sure there's a lot of other first year interns, future interns. What advice would you give to any future Cape League interns?
Definitely enjoy the summer outside of, I mean, just being Katuitt and how special that is and how special Lowell Park is. But also every single aspect of what's going on at Lowell Park applies in maybe just a bigger setting at a major league ballpark. As simple as like just someone standing at the front, greeting people, someone doing kind of community relations, someone even the people that kind of operate, like understanding concessions, trash pickup. That was something I used to do. Like these things are identical at large parks. And really they are applicable in the same way. So just kind of taking it in and understanding every single job, whether or not, maybe you're just a broadcasting intern, but sort of understanding how the game day interns work or vice versa. I think that's really important just to know.
Is there anything about Lowell Park that maybe you wish, hey, maybe Fenway had this? Is there something that Fenway doesn't have that Lowell Park does have?
I mean, I'm partial to concessions at Lowell Park. I think they've always been a little bit better, but maybe the scale's a little different. I think there's something about Lowell Park about how it doesn't have lights that makes it really special. It gives really that this unique kind of. I'm thinking of that movie The Natural from a while back where it's just kind of the sun's going down and you're near the water and you can almost like smell the salt, and it's just it's like a Norman Rockwell painting. And I don't know if going to a large park like Fenway with advertisements and loud noise and things like that, you get that somewhat Americana feel. So I think there's just something so special about it. Even other parks in the Cape League, I mean, Lowell Park is just a special place. And I think growing up in Kentuit, I didn't really realize it until I kind of ventured out.
So you talked about Lowell Park and how special it is, but growing up as a Kentuit native, what is the community of Kentuit mean to you? What makes it so special?
Yeah, it's one of the smaller villages in the town of Barnstable, and I think a lot of the people live in a very centralized place around like Main Street and the Coop and Kettleho. So you end up meeting, you see the same people over and over again, and a lot of the people there, they love where they live, they love where they're from, they have close ties. Their identity, I guess, is kind of, I'm not from Barnstable, I'm from Kentuit, which maybe some people feel differently about. But I think just how close knit the community is, and this kind of goes to the Kettleers. I mean, Kentuit's really small, but somehow they have their own team. Whereas other towns like Orleans or Yarmouth, I mean, these are towns of thousands of people. So I think whenever you go to Lowell Park, you just see the same people over and over again, and I think over time that builds a really strong community.
So when you're at Fenway, Aaron, I guess one of the cool traditions is when players, coaches, broadcasters, etc., anybody that seems to be around the game, they can come inside the Green Monster to sign their names on the walls. A cool tradition. What do you love about that tradition especially, and have you gotten to sign the Monster?
Yeah, it's really fun to see who walks through the door sometimes. And it's not just players. We have all different types of, I guess, celebrities, even just people from Boston that have unique stories. I think we had the third member of the Apollo 11 mission came in, and I didn't know who he was. It was a bit awkward. Will Ferrell visited. We had Theo Epstein a couple weeks ago. I think one of the more interesting parts is when the players do come in, just kind of seeing them like light up and realize that like, hey, I made it to the show. Like I'm playing here tonight, and I'm inside the Green Monster. So they have I think they're kind of in awe. And as you kind of mentioned, there's signatures everywhere. So you can kind of walk through and see the history of who's been there, who's kind of made their mark at Fenway. We have huge signatures of like Pedro Martinez, Manny Ramirez, Justin Verlander, Bryce Harper, Felix Hernandez. And when they come in, they're just they're so happy and interested to see like, hey, I'm at Fenway Park and I'm in this weird structure, but I made it, I think is their feeling.
What was the visit into the Monster to sign it that stuck out to you the most, or one that you remember the most?
I thought when Felix Hernandez visited, it was quite funny. He's a really, really big guy, and he looked so serious. And then he came in and he was acting like a 10-year-old, just kind of running around, pointing at things, just super happy. I mean, this has happened with a couple other players too, because they're professional athletes, and some of them like tower over us in a way, and just seeing them act like kids is quite funny. A lot of the Red Sox players are interesting too. When Alex Verdugo was mostly playing left field the past couple seasons, he would consistently turn around and kind of talk to us, even come in and during pitching breaks and just talk about things that weren't related to baseball. And it's kind of unique just to say like, hey, they're not just baseball players. They have, interesting lives outside of the team.
What's it like back there? Obviously, not many people have had the opportunity to even see inside there, other than maybe on an ESPN broadcast, like you mentioned earlier. But for you, kind of describe what it's like, the feeling of being back there.
Yeah, I would say you're subject to the elements quite a bit. So it can be quite cold, or on the contrary, quite hot. Like a hot 90-degree day in Boston, inside the Monster it's like a sauna. We're consistently drinking water, I don't know, running around. In terms of the actual operation of it, the plates are quite heavy. They go into these interesting looking slots that have these little hooks in them. And you're running around most of the game, even though what you're seeing outside, baseball might be slow. We're keeping track of scores around the league. So it's a great workout. And yeah, you're just kind of enjoying the game, taking in kind of baseball itself, and moving around quite a bit.
And when a wall ball is hit, how loud is it in there? Is it like an explosion for you guys?
It's very loud. During batting practice, I usually put my headphones in. Some people describe it as like a cannonball. But the Green Monster is made out of like aluminum and tin. So you could imagine throwing a baseball at anything, especially a metal wall, and it just sounding like a big boom. It's even louder. Sometimes players will run into the wall, and just that sound too is kind of alarming. At least for that, you're a little more prepared because you're watching the game.
And Fenway is known for having these massive moments. Of course, David Ortiz hitting a home run, Shane Victorino's triple in that Detroit series in 2013. That was off the Monster. Are there any key major Boston moments, Red Sox moments that stick out to you?
Yeah, I mean, I think just that whole 2018 season, I mean, the 108 wins, the best team that the Red Sox have ever had, I guess, from a record point of view. The ALCS, there was a play against Houston where the left fielder ran right into the wall and was stuck out there. I mean, he was okay, but on the warning track for a few minutes, and it was kind of weird. Like, medical staff came out, other players came out, and we could just kind of see about 5 feet away. We could hear everything, and just feeling like, hey, we're in like the middle of the game here. We're as close as can be. So that whole season was just, it was awesome. It's kind of a bummer because unless we have another record-setting Red Sox season, that might be the best I'll ever get to experience. But these seasons, even just making the playoffs and having new players come through, new fans come through, has just been, it's awesome. Every season's unique and fun in its own way.
And sorry for the rapid fire questions here.
Sure,
This is the last one, but you talk about new faces coming through Fenway each and every year, but of course there are some that obviously stick around, of course, dating back to guys like Ted Williams, Carlton Fisk, and guys like that. Are there any kind of mementos that you want to share that those guys may have left in the Monster from years and years ago?
Yeah, I mean, they've all signed back there and kind of left their mark. And whenever they're at the park, they visit. Dave Ortiz has been in a few times. Manny precedes me. I've only been there, I think Manny might have been there over a decade now. So I did not get to experience Manny being Manny. But I think like just anyone one thing we find interesting is sometimes baseball players will become coaches on teams, and they'll come back even like a decade later and walk in, and signatures are just all over the place on the wall. And they'll be like, "Oh, I swear I signed somewhere in here." And immediately we just hand them a Sharpie and say, like, "You're not going to find it. Sign again. And, next time you come back, I'm sure it'll be there." So just kind of seeing people that come back to Fenway years later and just kind of show that nostalgia or that joy that they had even the first time they played there. That's just quite special to observe. So yeah, just players over the years that kind of loved playing there. It's awesome to see them come back.
Do you see that nostalgic experience correlate a little bit with the Cape Cod League?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think just kind of thinking about years ago of working down there and just how much I loved it. And years later working at this job and feeling that same way, it is nostalgic. And even sometimes too, players will come in and some names, stick out in the Cape League of those that made it to the majors. And you kind of just chat about like, hey, what was your experience like? I remember Jackie Bradley he was on the Harbor Hawks, but he was actually, his host family was across the street from me. And just him becoming a Red Sox player and us talking about, hey, like your host family was in Kettuit and all these things. I mean, it's just interesting how full circle it is and how many people think about their time at the Cape League as like quite a happy point in both their careers and just their lives. Cape Cod in the summer, it's like, it's the best place to be. So definitely, the nostalgia is definitely there. Yeah.
Well, I know we agree, and I agree myself. Of course, it's a great place to catch a game. Hopefully, you'll be able to make it down to catch a game at some point this summer, Aaron.
Yeah, I hope so too, and I hope to be able to host you all, at the scoreboard sometime this summer. So should be looking forward to it.
Yeah, we'll be at Fenway in a couple weeks as well with the rest of the Kettleers and the rest of the league as well. And so maybe we'll see you early June. I think that's when we're going up. If not, we'll have to figure out a time to catch a Sox game.
Sounds good to me.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for me. Tyler, Lily, you guys have any more questions to add?
I'm all good, Joe. Thank you.
Sounds good. All right. Well, that's going to do it for us. Thank you, Aaron Kanzer, for joining us for episode 6 of this season of On Deck with the Ketts. Be sure to stay up to date on all things Kettleers on our Twitter, Instagram, and of course on our website. This episode will be posted in the next few days. And of course, first pitch for the Cape Cod Baseball League is right around the corner. We will be there to bring you all of the action in just a few weeks. But until then, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.